Radio TV phono nut, and we have a 12-inch RCA black and white set from about 1984, I believe. The model and date sticker's gone off the back, but it seems to be about right on the year. Not much wrong with this set. I think all it really needs is the controls and the tuner washed out, and it should be good to go. And then maybe we'll watch some election returns on this later on. And on the front, of course, we have our VHF and UHF tuner and a brightness and off-on volume knob. And on the back, you can tell I wasn't lying, the model tag is missing. We have controls for contrast, vertical hold, and horizontal hold. Cabinet's in pretty good shape, just needs to be cleaned up. We have this one moderate scratch on top that likely happened at the thrift store. Now, this is still a real RCA set, but it was made in their Taiwan factory. RCA and Zenith in the early 70s shifted production of their smaller screen black and white sets to Taiwan to save money. They were still decent quality TVs. They just weren't made in the United States anymore. And here, the back cover removed, we have our chassis layout showing you where all of the major components are. A typical little single board chassis design that RCA used for years, from about the late 70s until at least the mid 80s and maybe beyond. The chassis before this was a modular design. Well, I guess you'd call it a hybrid modular design. It used an IF module and I believe an audio module, and the rest was on a single board. You see we have our TO3 cased horizontal output transistor and our donut style flyback transformer that's a throwback to the vacuum tube era. RCA branded picture tube, although it was probably made by somebody else. EIA 1240, I'm not sure, I'll have to look it up, but I think that crosses over to Clinton, which they made a good many of these little 12-inch tubes. Here's a model tag on the inside of the set, model AJR121W. And I see late 1983 date codes on some of these parts, so this set is more than likely a 1984 model. In 1986, GE bought out RCA, and then a couple of years after that, GE handed over the whole RCA and GE consumer product line to Thompson Consumer Electronics, and at that point it was game over. I'm going to look at the bottom of the circuit board and see if anything needs to be resoldered, and I'm going to clean all the pots and the tuner, and then this thing ought to be ready to go. Well, I don't see anything that looks obviously bad, and I think this is a low-hour set based on the cleanliness of the chassis. Usually when these things were used heavily, there's a lot of dirt in them because the high voltage attracts dirt. And it's not loaded with cigarette crud, that's a plus. And I can tell this chassis has never been pulled out for service because it still has the zip ties holding the chassis in place to the plastic guides here. Alright, so I'm going to spray these controls if I can get my Quirkly Dorkler in here and then rotate them back and forth a bunch of times, and alright, that ought to take care of that. Now, of course, there's no need to spray anything in the horizontal hold control because it's an inductor, and just no need to clean it. In fact, spraying anything in it might harm it, so we'll leave that alone. Here's the tuner with the cover dislodged, and this is one of the better tuners with strips. It's not one of the cheapy wafer tuners, which is very unusual for a set like this, especially one from the mid-80s. So we're just going to hose all this down with control cleaner and run the tuner back and forth a bunch of times, and that ought to take care of it. Okay, we have it heavily saturated with control cleaner. And we'll just run this back and forth a bunch of times and get the cleaner worked in, and that ought to clean up the contacts. And okay, we have sound and raster. Nice bright picture. That's good. Let's put a signal source to this and see what happens. Alright, we have our signal connected and it's working well.
No, everything was... You didn't even see that. Douglas hit. Everybody was doing... Lower Charles never asked questions. Drug coverage.
Let's check our sync lock. Alright, that looks good. And addressing some comments that I get just about every time I post a TV repair video, somebody usually comments, why are you wasting your time with that old CRT stuff when you can go buy a flat screen for a little or nothing these days? Well, it's quite simple. I don't want a flat screen. About all I watch is news and old TV shows, and something like this will do just fine for that. I don't need to go spend money on a new Chinese-made TV that could very well crap out in 2 years and not be worth repairing, and then all I've got is a giant paperweight. Whereas this old TV, these kind of sets, I can usually get relatively cheap, and I can keep them going. And someone else made the comment about, well, these newer TVs use less power. Well, that may be true in some cases not. It depends on the era of set you're comparing it to, but one thing is for sure, these older TVs with a standard type power button, power switch, when you turn them off, they're off. Your new TV, as long as it's plugged in, it's going to be roto-turbulating your electric meter.
Required by the teaching.
And somebody else mentioned about the weight of these older TVs. Well, that's fine. I don't care about the weight. I need the exercise. And also, if somebody breaks in my house, they won't be as likely to steal an old TV like this as they would if I had some nice modern flat screen sitting up in here.
Single unit is going to look great on your nightstand, your desk, anywhere in your home where you might need that extra charge. It features an attached touch control LED lamp, a Qi wireless charging pad, and 1 USB port. Now the charger has been tested and designed for
oh yes, it's exactly what I need.
Foreign object detection for safe, efficient charging for all of your devices. Plus, it's super simple to use. All you have to do is place your wireless charging compatible device face up onto the wireless pad, and you are good to go.
Man, I like that. So, give me the price.
All right, now normally this can retail for as high as $90, but today here on the Doctors,
$19.95.
$39. That is
$39.
Tonight, election night in America, and the first exit polls are coming in now. What they reveal already. Tonight, we take you inside both campaigns' final hours. The president visiting his campaign headquarters in Virginia, telling supporters winning is easy, losing is never easy. Not for me, it's not. And what he said about declaring victory. Joe Biden returning to his childhood home in Scranton with 2 of his granddaughters with him, writing a message on the wall, from this house to the White House, with the grace of God. What the Biden campaign is saying tonight about their chances, given what they know about the early vote. And will we hear from Joe Biden tonight what the campaign is now saying? History in the making in this country. In the middle of this pandemic, more than 100 million ballots cast, even before the polls opened this morning. Americans looking to vote safely in this pandemic and to make sure their votes count. And tonight, late reporting, a judge ordering inspectors to visit mail ballot processing facilities to make sure votes have not been left behind. And on this election day, Pennsylvania, just beginning today to count the more than 2.5 million mail-in votes in that state. If it all comes down to Pennsylvania, this could last well beyond election night. And tonight here, a viewer's guide for you. The states to watch early in the night to hit that all-important number, 270 electoral votes. Florida, the one state President Trump needs if it goes to Joe Biden, is at an early night. And if the president wins Florida, the multiple other paths for Joe Biden will take you through them. All eyes tonight on Georgia and North Carolina, too. The president's plea to suburban women, did it work? What we're seeing with seniors across this country, with Latinos and black voters. And tonight, control of the Senate, the key races to watch this evening, and what voters are now saying about the most important issue facing this country. The exit polls just in. ABC News election night coverage, a special edition of World News Tonight, begins now. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir. Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on this election night in America, perhaps the most consequential election in a generation, because of course it comes in the middle of this once-in-a-century pandemic, Americans breaking all records when it comes to the early vote, determined to make sure they were safe in this pandemic and that their vote will be counted. There are huge dividing lines across this nation over how to guide this country through what is still a raging pandemic and what we will look like on the other side. Millions out of work and a much-needed conversation on race in this country. So who will lead us through this next important chapter? The first exit polls just coming in tonight. President Trump at the White House this evening after 14 rallies in 3 days, a massive crowd there in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today paying a visit to his re-election headquarters, thanking his team, predicting a great night, but adding, winning is easy, losing is never easy, not for me. Former Vice President Joe Biden, this rally in Pittsburgh overnight, and today in Scranton, where he was born and where he grew up as a boy. And on the wall of his childhood home, he wrote, "From this house to the White House, with the grace of God." And tonight I mentioned those first clues from the preliminary exit polls. These are voter polls, voters who showed up early and who showed up today, and those who mailed in their ballots. They were reached by phone. And tonight, take a look. A nation divided on how President Trump is handling his job. 47% approving, 52% disapproving. Again, these are preliminary. Asked which is more important, containing the virus or rebuilding the economy. 52% saying containing the virus, 42% on the economy. Asked how the U.S. has handled the pandemic, the largest group saying not well. 18% there said very well, 30% saying somewhat well, 16% somewhat badly, and this is the number that stands out, 35% saying very badly. Asked who would better handle the coronavirus pandemic, 52% saying Joe Biden, 43% saying President Trump. And who would better handle the economy? This number is also key tonight, and right now it's tied up, 49% saying Joe Biden, 49% saying President Trump. Again, all this is preliminary. Of course, the...
It's a little rump.
You know, right there, you sound exactly like my dad.
It defines the laws of gravity.
There, see, you did it.
Said to themselves, you know, we don't like the guy, but we like his...
Is one. This
It's very important to vote because our life depends on it.
And if Biden wins, he'll have done it by convincing voters, like Marcus Kent.
I really wanted to give Trump a chance, but he's good on the economy and everything else, but, you know, this country's a lot more than the economy. So that's why my vote's going to Biden.
Nationwide, no reports of widespread voter fraud or intimidation, but a federal judge ordered the U.S. Postal Service to sweep mail processing facilities to ensure no ballots were held up for delivery. The order came amid complaints about slowed-down 75-inch.
I got a fortune in here. Yeah, what is it?
16 in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin,
Yeah,
and
another
Michigan.
comment I got regarding the old TVs is how do you manage to fill the screen out with your converter box and not have the black borders? Well, my box has a zoom button on it, and somebody said, well, that's more reason to have a modern TV. You don't have the side of the picture cut off. Well, yeah, it's true, it does cut off the side of the picture, but most of the content that you focus on is going to be in the center of the screen, and I'd rather have the sides of my picture chopped off and have black bars around the picture. I mean, I wanna make use of all of my inches. I don't want any wasted inches there on my screen.
Kristen Walker, thanks. It's turned out that Chuck Todd has been poring over just released exit polling data. This is early data.
Very early, and it could change a little bit. But look, to me, the most important thing in this election is going to be issue-wise coronavirus versus the economy. What was prioritized? And we asked this question of the exit poll. Here's the national exit poll here. 52% said containing the coronavirus should be prioritized over rebuilding the economy, 42%. The president's closing message, Lester, as you know, has been about gotta reopen. So look at that spread, 52-42. Trump himself.
Hoping his strategy 4 years ago will pay off again. John Carl, thank you. And Joe Biden campaigning up to the last minute today, returning to Pennsylvania. The state...
Well, the Zenith is still holding together, but yeah, as far as that little black and white set, it looks to be low hours. By the 80s, most people buying those were buying them just as a spare to have, so when the big color set goes out, you got something to watch or something to put in the kids' bedroom or the guest bedroom or the RV or places where it's not going to be used 18 hours a day, so there you go.
On the line. We are going to keep on working, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning. We choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division, science over fiction, and yes, we choose truth over lies. So it's time to stand up, take back our democracy.
Live from New York City and across the country, Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
8 p.m. in the East, polls have just closed in 16 more states. Will win the District of Columbia and its 3 electoral votes. But let's take a look down in the map now and see what we show. Oklahoma and Kentucky for President Trump, Vermont and those states up in the Northeast, Massachusetts, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey for Joe Biden right now. Still early in the night, 6 states to 2, 44 electoral votes to 15. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Ohio in the middle of the country. 28% of the expected vote is in, and right now at least, Tom Yamas, Joe Biden has a lead.
Yeah, and actually there's some good news for Joe Biden out of Ohio. The Biden campaign didn't really contest Ohio. They made some last-minute trips there, and here's why they have reasons to be happy. In counties like Wood...
Well, on Channel 6 analog, I can play with the fine-tuning and get 88.1 public radio to come in, which is really no surprise.
Not only how we vote by voting for mail, but why we vote. It looks like independents finding coronavirus...
The Red King James Bible of the John 3...
At 800-795...
a new type of coalition, and it's letting him hang on in the Sun Belt.
Tom Bevan, let's bring you in on this because Governor DeSantis was saying the polls are wrong. The polls are always wrong in Florida. What do you make? Right now we have the president up with 88% of the vote in by about 2.5 points there. Joe Biden was deadlocked there. What do you make of the numbers you see in Florida now and the numbers we thought going into the evening tonight?
Well, there were certainly some polls that showed Donald Trump ahead. This is not a situation where every pollster had Joe Biden winning in a state, but on average, Biden had a slight lead in this state. But we saw this, again, Ron DeSantis was right. We've seen this repeatedly in Florida. We saw it in 2016. We saw it again in 2018.
Tomorrow down the road, whether communities of color in this country actually believe that and feel like this is a White House that has embraced them with open arms over the last 4 years.
Lots more vote to be seen. It's coming up on 8:47 here in the East Coast. Right now, Donald Trump has won 5 states, 42 electoral votes. Joe Biden, 6 states and 44 electoral votes. We'll be right back.
If you're at home thinking about your financial plans, at State Farm Arena,
which caused the delay in processing ballots. Let me explain what that means. State Farm Arena is where the Atlanta Hawks play ball, smack dab in the middle of downtown Atlanta, which is in Fulton County. So you have the largest polling station, which is also in the largest county in this state, had an issue this morning with a pipe burst, a water leak essentially. So there was a delay in processing ballots there so they could clean up the area. Now, I talked to Fulton County. Their officials say this caused about a 2-hour delay. Talked to the Secretary of State's office. They say it was about 4 hours.
Insistently, and also there's been a very strong push for the last month.
When pain wears you down.
Okay, I think we've about seen enough for the evening.